Oceanicod, Unola, Dawadon, Wade Levens, Yonigante, Tlaicotega, Galele, Together, Kohik, Nugsko, Gine, Cherokee, de Low Coste. Welcome. My name is Wade Blevins, and this is Cherokee 3 here at RSU TV. This is our 47th Cherokee lesson. So if you've hung with me this far, we're really close to the end, and hopefully, in teaching using this manner, it's kind of difficult because always before, whenever I've taught, I've had live students, and I've been able to gauge my pacing according to my students and what my students are ready for. I can, look them in the eyes and see if they have that glazed over look or not. However, doing it this way, I can't do that. So I just kind of have to guess and kind of remember how it was for myself. And so these last two lessons are going to be fairly easy, lots and lots of review. I would rather you know a few things really, really well than a lot of things not well. And of course, if you're just starting, I don't expect you to know every single word that we've presented to you during this series, but just keep listening to it, because when your mind is ready for it, you'll acquire a little bit more. You'll get a little bit deeper understanding, and that will continually happen. I know recently I was even going through some of the lessons for Cherokee 1, and even for myself, as I was going through the lessons, I would gain a new insight or a little bit deeper understanding of what was going on with the words and stuff. And that's how it's going to be for you as well. So it's just kind of a constant cycle of deepening your understanding, maybe kind of like a drill bit going down into wood. That's hopefully how it will be for you. So today, I want us to go back over the Pretty Snake story, and then I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about other things that you can do if you're not in the class, things you can do on your own, and kind of strategies that you can use, or that at least I find very helpful to help myself with. If you have a speaker available to you, that is perfect. Even if they're not physically with you, I encourage you to get in contact with people who are first language speakers, and they can help you. You can bounce ideas off of them. You can, and I find that for the most part, most first language speakers are more than happy to be helpful to you. So I encourage that. However, if you're in a place where you don't have that option, or where you just don't have those resources for you, I encourage you to seek out like-minded individuals. There are a lot of platforms online, discussion groups, study groups, things like that. I want to give you a word of caution. Make sure that the people who are running those groups, or the people that are predominantly posting in those groups or offering lessons, make sure that they are legitimate. Make sure they are, federally recognized citizens. Citizenship doesn't automatically confer validity or anything like that, but it's a good indicator. Very few speakers exist outside of our communities. There are some. And it does happen. There are people who have deliberately chosen not to be citizens or to enroll. and a good example of that is Wes Studi. He's not an enrolled citizen, however, he is Cherokee. Cherokee was his first language. His mother was a citizen, and so they do exist, but he was still a part of our Cherokee communities here at home. So anyway, I just want to caution you, the interwebs, or whatever you want to call them, is a vast place, and there's a lot of information out there, but not all of it is accurate. So, do your due diligence, and but it's a great way to help increase your knowledge and increase your learning, and to gain encouragement and support with other people who are also going through the same issues as you are, as far as trying to acquire their indigenous language. So we're going to look a little bit about at what is currently available here in at this time, and some of the things I myself use as I'm putting lessons together, or just as I'm studying at home on my own, and some of the places that I go to kind of give me a leg up. So, come. Okay. Okay, so here is the story. You probably remember we talked about where this came from. It came from a project done in 1966. And it's kind of funny because I was actually working on a different story than this. And so I was messaging back and forth to a first language speaker. And we were talking about the words and the things like that, and she was like, we don't talk like this today, And she was laughing. She's like, because it was hard for her too, for some of the words, or the way that they put the words together, or the phraseology that they would use, or the conventions that they would use. And she's like, she said, it's really kind of hard. She said, because we don't talk like that today, And all of that is to say, don't beat yourself up if you don't know every single word in it, because I have found in my experience that most first language speakers are in the same boat. They'll come across words and they're like, well, I don't understand that word. I don't really know what it's trying to say there. Or even whole phrases, and they're like, that doesn't make sense to me the way they put it together. However, probably if they were in a room together and that same speaker who wrote the piece were to say it out loud, then the inflection and everything like that, and the pauses and everything, they might be like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's just, our language was originally intended to be a spoken language, and then when we put it into written form, it doesn't always work out. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to read through this story, and then we're going to look at where the story came from, okay? So, I encourage you to try and read with me. I'm going to read a little bit faster than I did the last time. And I encourage you to try to read it with me, because it's the only way we get better, right? All right. Uwo duhi unjati inata. Kohi jike sagi ehe kanohali donhi nika gohustino ahyohi he osta agisti agalujik sawu ga ia isa ji squa dekane he juhyo tlahi ugoheno usti inad gange nano hulti. Uwo du zahi nun una je inata. Uwo duhi una unjati ale udanti nigo ste dikanti. Kano hali dohino ule huistane ule huistane uka uktostane uyo si skete kanti jis kwano duna nele si nuena takwu Helas kano nun do takwu na I se jis tu dekane he I ju hyo tlai iu go he inat I gang ke wo du hi dan ti ni go stay a said no ina hi te sai jis tu no du na ne le hi ano nu we se o si o iu we na se no Lle hino gano hali don hi iu go he inat u tan na gu ge se a se no u don tin go stay a le u yo si ske ni go stay Gano hali don hino ni ka na de kane he u le wis tane u na ne le no inat ka na ka woge Na gu le kano hali do hi juwe na sa wak te a hui a nigin dali se he Na gu no u wo du hi un sati I na ta u we kwa chen a le si gu di kano oge di kano di kan sigu di kanti u yo si ske kano hali do hino u we do li je u ton a hui u na ne le u hua he sti ju we na sano u te gon ne ya wi dinal ski si sa unal ski sti dige sai Nikada ani sanoi uni lu tse Na hi you know e noi se noi anali ski ske Aji lai go ta danino gi ske juweti di kano gi sti Inata ulu tse du wis tane ino du wis tane ino gwa deid yawi anal ski ska Inata no u tana ale gana hid du da ne se gus du wid yawi ale yawi du ne nu la wis tane Inata ni ka un sati ale u danti ale u yo si ske nego stay Ya no un le na he ani sky he Ni du ni we se le ani choose do not third gal chat ale diga tlid uni yo sti inata Ani choose duni he diga tlid chat ale nigoda unal unali gone uni hyo tled inata Inata no uni sona ne kato kano uda esi dola nika jati du tle yawi Andiskano inada naskia yowaneg gese. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful to you. Hopefully you were able to follow it kind of along with what was going on. As you can see, even myself, there were words that I had to kind of back up and, try again. I had to be like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. So let's say it a little bit different way and see if that makes sense, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you where this came from, and we're going to kind of take a quick look-see at it. So, all right. So, as you can see, I found this on Google Books. You can read it free of charge. It's, a free, basically free education for you. Okay. The actual Cherokee parts of it don't start until page 642. So we're gonna go all the way down to 642, and we're going to let's see, we're on 552. So all right, so we're going to make our way down. Hopefully. Okay, let's keep going. There we go. For some reason it wasn't wanting to scroll properly, but that happens. Okay, so it's a long bulletin, as you can see, and a lot of it's just talking about, at that time, this was in the 1960s, and you can see, they're talking about problems with school, right? They're talking about this basically the state of education among the Cherokee people in the 1960s, and which is an interesting reading in and of itself, but it doesn't really help us as far as language goes. But it is very interesting. So I encourage you, if you're into that kind of thing, to have a read, take a peruse through there. I've read parts of it, and it is interesting. And there's really some interesting stuff in here in the Cherokee language. Now, keep in mind, some of the things that we're going to look at here today were intended for speaker audiences, okay, for monolingual speakers, for people that did not speak English or spoke very little English, which I think is really, really cool. So the first thing, here we go, you see, we're going to make it just a bit smaller so that we can fit it on the page. There we go. All right, so you can see here, PHS Indian Hospital, Juni Tlagi Ani Wiya, una tladi ani ganak ti. Okay, so doctors, right? And so this is a guide, an IHS guide in the Cherokee language, which is pretty neat, And so what they did is they did it bilingually. So let's do it this way. That makes it. There we go. So you can see here. They'll have the words here on the side, and then they have it in Cherokee right next to it. So that's what the first part is about. So, and as we can see through here, it talks about, taking x-rays and the pharmacy and the public health nurse, the dietitian, the dentist. So there's a lot of really, really fun, interesting stuff in there. So, and it was done, prepared by the Social Service Department, Heiner Doublehead, cross-cultural project, and so it talks about there, and which I think is really, really cool. And then the next part that we see here is another Cherokee primer. There is a Cherokee primer that was done, like, I don't know, I think in the 1800s, and it's a little bitty thing, and we did parts of it. We did the catechism, I think, in the back, and all of those things. Well, here's another one that was done in the 60s, in 1965. And it's on its side, but we're just kind of going to look through there. And so you can see how it's organized. I really, really like it. I get a kick out of it. It has some pictures, and it has, like Otni, Gani, Agaska, Askaya, Ageha, Wahya, Waka, Anishkai, Anishkaya, and it has that kind of stuff in there, which is really cool, and it's got some little activities that you can do. So I really, really like this one. It's really neat. And then as it gets farther into it, then it starts to do sentences, which are very, very helpful. The alligator caught a fish. Jula ski, ajati ganiya. And so you can see there. And it has it in English on top and then in Cherokee at the bottom. Here is a cherry. Ni hi'a gitaya. Ni gitaya hi'a gitaya. And then as you get even farther in the lessons, let's see if we can get to it here. So then they get more difficult. So here's an article, which is kind of like what we're doing right now. We're looking at actual pieces of writing, and here is an article about the Western Band of the Cherokees. And so it says, Udeliga West Ane living Ani Jalagi. So the Cherokees that live in the West. Joint school. Nade Tia. So 300 years. Ale Igo Hilaya. Maybe Igo Hilaya. Maybe longer. Ani Jalagi Usti. Dani du ske. So they lived in small villages. Le Junine Dani ne. So they lived in little towns. So, and it's really kind of neat. And so I'm having a difficult time because I'm having to read it sideways. But so they have this, and so as I said, as it goes on, here's an article about the Cherokee National Holiday, which is really kind of cool. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 6. So, so there's that in there. Here's one, Kalagai about the Eastern Band, the Eastern Band Cherokees. So, and where they live, and it talks about Elawudi, all the different districts. It looks like Wayonhi, Wolftown, yep, Painttown, Aniwudi. So, Squahi, which I wonder if that's what they call Tood now. I don't know. So anyway, so there's that, and then we come to the Cherokee stories, which is where I got the part that we worked on. So you can see here they have it in Cherokee and in English. And you can see here Watt Spade, Willard Walker, Alec England, Lizzie England, Juanita Crittenden, Johnson Teehee, Sam Hare. Pictures by Jim Redcorn, June of 1966. So, and then they have all the different stories. They have it first in Cherokee and then in English. And I want to do one for you. Let's do this one here because it's short. So I just want to go through a little bit at how I do this, okay? I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm not young anymore and I can't read as easily. So oh, that didn't work. There we go. Oh, well, maybe. There we go. Oh, no. Okay. So I'll kind of show you, what my process is and how I do it. This may work for you, it may not, but I do like to try and read every so often, at least a couple times a week on my own, and try to figure it out. So this is Anik Tanai, Una de la Ho Sai. Okay, so Anak Tana, that's knowledgeable ones. Una de la Ho Sai. That's like to Una de la Ho is like to me, that's like to read the future, to prophesy. And then it says, Uni no he tlai. Uni no he tlai, they told, right? Kohig chike in days gone by. Uweti. And if you'll notice, it has it in English over here, so I can kind of get an idea. Uweti, the old. Ayetli, nation. Undo tlasa, government. Galkwogi, 7. Anik tanai, knowledgeable ones. Ale, galkwodiyu, galagwodiyu, and galagwodiyu is like beloved or sacred or holy. Uniyai. So this one here, uniyai, I'm like, okay, well, and so I'm like, well, I don't really know that word, so, but it sounds familiar, but I'll go on and see if I can figure it out. So I'll be like, Anishkaya, unena se. They went, so this is men, they went. Let me look over here. So it says 7 wise and holy men went together. Okay, so we have all those words in there, but we have an extra word in Cherokee, uniyai, right? So I'm like, okay, well, let me see. So I go here, and this is where I go. It's a great... it's CherokeeDictionary.net. Again, it's free. It's really, really a good, okay, and it has 3 ways of searching. It has Cherokee phonetic. You can do it in syllabary, or you can do the English. Now, here's the part, if you're a learner, that you may have problems with, okay? So it says, uniyai, uniyai. Okay, if I put that in there, uniyai, okay? If I put that in there, no results, okay? Because uniyai. But if you'll notice, if I just put part of it, a lot of things come up. And I find it better if I do it that way. None of this makes sense, okay? So as I read through there, I'll kind of look over here, Gani ya'ah, he's leaving it. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. He's catching it a little bit, like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. So sometimes it doesn't work out for you. But I also know that, there's a word, ayan, it's like to be in something, to be inside something, So I'm like, okay, well, uni ya, would it be like they inside, they're inside, So then I try to figure it out on my own, and then whenever I can't, I'll go to a speaker, and then I'll ask them, And so in this case, I messaged Miss Kathy Sierra. And I said, hey, I'm working on my reading today, and I came across this word. Does it mean this? And so I showed her, or I gave her the sentence, or first I gave her the word, and she's like, well, she's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. She was like, put it in a sentence. So I put the sentence, gave her the sentence, and she was like, yeah, to me that's kind of like, it's within, and so they're internally holy, And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So I'm just telling you that is my process. That's how I work through it. Just because if you don't understand all the words, don't give up. Don't just be like, oh, well, this is too hard. I can't do it. Take a little bit of time. So let's continue on. It says, uni nase, they went, ila tla iyada. Okay, ila tla iyad, al il tla iyad together, ukedaliya, a valley, a certain valley, dojo dala, in the mountains, dojo dala, in the mountains, uniyalase, they were searching, unigado hasti, unique to hasti. I think that's probably like knowledge, or they were looking for it. Iulistani dasti, uwagudidisa. Okay, so I'm like, oh, okay, so the things, iulistani dasti, happenings that are going to in the future. So they're looking for knowledge of the future, and of course over here that's what it says. So naski no Galko Gijuni Yomi, the 7 clans, Ani Jalagi of the Cherokee, Naski Galkogi Anishkaya, these 7 men, Duni Yukta. So they were the most Duni Yukta. We've learned the Du Yukta, right? The right way, the correct way. So they were the most. And here they translated as truthful. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. Gesei they were the most truthful. Ale, ulo sust, the ulo sust, like exceedingly, unadanti, exceedingly nice or friendly. That's how we would translate that today. Here it says selfless. It has to word. It deals with the word heart. Gese was, ale, and ulosasti. So if let's pretend like I don't know what that word means, okay? Just so we can go back here. And so if I didn't know what ulosasti meant, I would just go ulosas. And I'd be like, okay, well, that's good enough, Iyatawos tana, and I'm like, no, ulosas, just past, beyond. Because we use ulosas when we tell time, for like 10 minutes past whatever. So I'm like, okay. Now here, this says ulo sust is like terrible. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense in the sentence. That doesn't make any sense at all. You know, excess ulo sust, excess. You know, more than, beyond. I'm like, oh, okay. So if we go back here and we put that in the sentence, ulo sust. Here we go. Ulo sust unadante. So, exceedingly nice. Okay, beyond nice. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Of course, when they translate it over here, they just say they were the most something. But really, if we look at the word itself, it really kind of means it's past nice, you know, beyond nice, right? It's like, oh, okay, you know, so trying to work your way out, work it out that way will help you, you know, really get a better understanding of what that word is and what it does, right? So, and then of course, here's the story that we did. Here's that story. And we keep going. There's a story about the turtle riders, which is a very common story. And so the version in here is a little different than the one that I heard, but basically the same. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's really, really cool, you know? And so I read it in Cherokee, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's really neat. And then, of course, it has the end here. And then here is something that was written by Donald Van did the drawings, translated by Calvin Nakedhead, and it talks about the Cherokee people today. And so here's another thing that you can use to and then of course it gives the syllabary, because remember, especially back during that time, very, very few people were able to read in syllabary. It's kind of strange because at one time, more people read in you know, the percentage of Cherokees that read in Cherokee was greater than the percentage of white people who could read English. You know, at one time, Cherokee syllabary was very prolific. I mean, you know, everybody knew how to read it. But then, in the middle of the 20th century, it seemed to die off, and people just didn't read in Cherokee anymore. They just didn't do it. Well, I didn't know anyone. When I was a kid growing up, I didn't know anybody other than a preacher who could read in Cherokee. You know, they just, you know, most common people just didn't have a need for it, right? So, this is why they put almost everything that you see during this time period, they'll have a copy of the syllabary chart in the front of it. Because then a speaker can go, and if they really want to know what's in there, they can go through and they can work it out, and they can refer back to it to help them. My version of the Bible, the old Bibles, and also the old singing books, the old song books, were exactly the same way. They had a copy of the syllabary chart in the front, and so then people could, you know, kind of go back and forth and figure out what was going on. So, which I think is really, really cool, and it's really interesting. Okay, so here again, it's in English on the left, in Cherokee on the right. You know, Dikanoja Leski, you know, is what that says there. I think it's really kind of fuzzy, so it's hard for me to, let's see, Hilagi ane nani, hilanani anitzalagi. How many Cherokees are there? That's what that question says. So, Hilagi nani anitzalagi. Today, in spoken Cherokee, we would just say, Hilanani, how many living things are there? Anitzalaki. Right? Ika yike san Thing first was kilon, somebody. Uduli, if he wants. Yeah, I can't. I would have to zoom in, you know. But anyway, you can see. And you can use this to help because it's got the English on one side, Cherokee on the other, okay? So I find that very, very helpful. And the really, really cool thing about this that I personally love is it has, right here, it has a map with the communities. I'll kind of zoom in here. It has the communities written. You can read Aguana, you know, I'm having a hard time reading, but it has the districts. This is the districts. Here, Jalagi, Skadugi, so that's the Cherokee district, right? And you can Goose, Skadugi, Gouson, we would say Gouson. So that's like the Muskogee district there. So that's what I think is really, really cool about this last part. And then if you keep going farther, see it has the names of the settlements here. Cherokee settlements in North Oklahoma in 1963. And it lists them. It has them by name. So if you're trying to find out what the name of your community is, it might be here, you know. As I was reading through there, I was like, oh, really, that's cool. And it does it by district here. So I think that that's really, really neat. You know, it has the counties here. And it has the counties here, so we can kind of figure out. So Adair County, Dawiskala is Adair County. Cherokee County, Jalagi, good. Delaware County, Awaniki, Gogiski is Mays County. Sequoia County. Gouson, Muskogee County. So I find this to be very, very helpful. And there's a lot of really, really good information, even in English, if you're not, you know, even in English, there's some really, really cool information in it, right? Here's Cherokee communities which are shrinking. And you can see here, Johnson's Prairie, Moody's, Burnt Cabin, Grove, Honey Creek, which is my community. The Cherokee communities were shrinking even back then in the 60s, and they're shrinking now. So I was like, oh, well, that's kind of sad. And then Cherokee communities which are new and growing. Holbert, Tahlequah, Red Oak, Jay, Leech, Little Kansas, Rose, Locust Grove, Salina, Pryor, and it has all of that. So anyway, so I really encourage you, if you really are into learning the language and wanting to know more, this is a great resource. See, there's just all kinds of good information, you know, and that's not specifically tied to the Bible, because like as I said before, you know, finding written sources to read is very, very difficult. It's hard to do. And here's one for you that's, you know, it started on 460 something and ended in 800, and so, you know, 200 pages of written Cherokee. And most of it is pretty accessible. I found as I would read through these, the most difficult part for me was the IHS manual. And I think it's because the IHS manual was fairly specific, fairly specialized in its vocabulary. And of course it was, you know, words that I probably didn't even know in English, you know. much less in Cherokee. So we're going to talk a little bit about this little thing and how you can use this. So as I said, you can look up words. I don't get frustrated if you're trying to look up a Cherokee word. Don't put the whole word in there. Try to find the root, the middle of it. Okay, try to find the middle and kind of put that in there, and that will help you in your search for that word. At least for myself. Let's look up, and I'll show you a typical. Let's just put washing his face. Okay, so Oxqua, Hoxquaja means wash your face, and so you'll see here it's got the first person present, meaning I am washing my face, Goxqua. The third person past, Uxqua. Third person, he or she, habitual. He habitually washes his face, hopefully. Second person imperative, wash your face, Hoxquaj, wash your face. And the infinitive, he to wash his face, okay? And then it gives you, a lot of times it'll give you sentences. And if we look here, it has a link, and you can get the link, and you can see the entry, and you can see where the source was. It was from the Durban Feeling Dictionary. The part of speech, it's a verb, intransitive verb. And then down here, these are the cool things. This is a verb table. And it can give you, it has a drop-down menu. It has present tense, past tense, habitual, immediate, and infinitive. And so I will say, and then it has the initial prefixes, which I've never really played with a whole lot, but it has them. You know, they're in there. And then we go back. It has this conjugate thing, which you have to know a little bit about grammar in order to use that well. But still, you can play around with it. I will tell you that at least in speaking with speakers that I work with, not always is this system 100% accurate, and it could just be a dialect thing. I don't know, but they'll say, well, but it will give you a ballpark for sure, and then it has all these reading and listening links. It has the Cherokee New Testament. So if you want to, so as an example, say for example, see here's the book of Matthew, and it has it in syllabary. It has the English, and then it has the pronunciation underneath. So, and like, for example, I was working on this one because if you're taking this class in the fall, then it's about Christmas time right now. So, you can read through there, and you can be like, oh, well, this is the nativity, the story of the nativity in Cherokee. So they do have that. The Cherokee Bible Project is attached to this. So, and there's just a lot of really, really cool stuff in there. And so I encourage you to play with it a little bit and enjoy it, because it's a good reference for you as a learner. So if you want to find the Google book, like I said, it's for free. It's the here is the what you would search for in a Google search: hearings, 90th Congress, first and second sessions on the study of the education of Indian children, issue 2. Very important. Find issue 2, or to put that issue 2 in there, because as you can see, it's an 800-page document. I Originally, I had kind of stumbled across it on accident doing something else, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just find it again. And then it took me like 3 days to find it again because I didn't have that issue 2 in there. And so it was very difficult to find again. So make sure that you have that whole thing in there, and then that'll pull it up, okay? And then, of course, you can do the Cherokee Online Dictionary, or CherokeeDictionary.net is a good source for you. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how much time we have left, so I think we're just about out of time. So from all of us here at Cherokee Nation and at RSU TV, I just want to say wadon. Hopefully today we didn't do a lot of language, but I was trying to help you do language on your own. So anyway, I just want to say wadon, thank you, don dago ha'i, jadok sauce test.